Hello, everybody. Another episode of SME Business TV with Frankie Goodman and me, Nigel Whitaker. Today, we're speaking to Melanie Blyth, who spent the last 12 years working for Shell and is now out there as a consultant trainer with other businesses. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do for people.
So, yeah, I'm, as you said, having come out of more than 20 years in a corporate environment, but having a major passion for people and particularly how teams work. I've set up a business a couple of years ago, and I'm now working on it full time, which helps teams to become even better at what they do. That's fundamentally what I do. So I work on how to achieve really high performance with teams. And I do that through development activities, understanding where teams' greatest opportunities are in the business or their biggest challenges, and then working with them as individuals and as a whole team to help them perform better. Those teams tend to be either senior leadership teams, so the sort of C-suite or the leaders or senior managers. I do also work with sort of sales and customer service teams because my background is in that area. And more recently, of course, with virtual teams, and they can be made up of anyone really at the moment. So
that would be good.
I'm sort of expanding.
Today. Yeah, that would be good to cover today, how to get virtual teams performing to a higher degree. How have you been working with virtual teams?
Well, my programs anyway always had some virtual element to them. So a classic program would have been getting together for a day or two with the team, also doing some one-to-one coaching. Some of that would have been virtual. And then having some other sort of what I call interventions or moments to then really look at how they sustain what they're working on. And some of that might have been face-to-face and some of it could calls as well. So yeah, I've always worked in for the last 10 years I've worked in a development, so I always incorporate that in my programs anyway. But now, of course, yeah, everything's virtual. So some of the programs I've been running have gone completely virtual. Some of them are postponing a little bit. And maybe just doing a few small virtual pieces to them. And, I've picked up a few new things, particularly around actually helping leaders who are managing teams and finding it a challenge, to be honest, in this climate, which is no surprise.
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually, because I was part of the Google Squared course. So it's like Google's online training course. And predominantly it is for leaders. And it's for people who are in management within marketing roles or want to aspire to be in management through marketing roles. And part of that module, you start off with people in your own territories and within your own sort of time zones. And then they purposely put you in people who are not in your time zone anymore, who you have to work on a project with to try and force people who work better virtually and to try and understand how that process should work. And that was great because you got exposed to that and you had to try and learn how to do it. But there was never any guidance on what you should do, how you should do it. You was kind of left to your own devices. And you can obviously imagine, a lot of senior management people trying to run in their own direction and everyone going off on their own sort of route, if you like. And there's sort of bringing that synergy together was really, really difficult. Yeah. So, that tends to always be missing, is that bit of how do you do that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the challenge is there both in face-to-face teams and virtual teams, but it's almost augmented when it's virtual. So everything that can go wrong or the challenges that you have are just even tougher in a virtual environment, at least to begin with anyway. And I guess, that maybe brings me on to my first piece of advice for anyone working in a virtual environment. And my goodness, have we seen loads of advice recently? I think everybody has written something about it. So I guess I wanted to just mention the three key things so that you can kind of cut through everything that you're potentially reading or not reading anymore. about what to do as a virtual team, like you said, Frankie. You know, what are the ways to actually sort of make it work? And those three things are creating a rhythm, having a really strong purpose, and the well-being of that team and those team members. That's how I would boil it down, to those three things. And let me just explain what I mean by that briefly. So having a rhythm, particularly as a team, is really key. And that comes naturally often when we're face to face. You know, you turn up at the office, some people a bit earlier than others, you have your coffee, you know, you might chat to various people. Sort of, there's normally a natural break for a mid-morning time and also at lunchtime. I mean, these things just naturally happen, but in the virtual world, that doesn't naturally happen. So sort of what is going to be the rhythm you work to? And obviously it depends on the team and the business, but, you know, having, and I know a lot of teams are now doing a little daily huddle in the morning for 15 minutes, half an hour max, to discuss, you know, how they're doing and what they're focusing on today. Often others are jumping in and offering some help. But also, of course, you know, the leader of the team also doing some quick one-to-ones with people is really important. Again, that would have happened naturally face to face. As you walk past people, you might see they're looking, you know, a bit tired, or their, you know, their head is in their hands at their desk, and you can immediately say something, but you don't see that virtually. So, you know, creating a bit of a rhythm where people can talk is really important. So yeah, many aspects of that. The second one about the purpose, well, and this is where you might have struggled, Frankie, with what you were talking about, particularly when you have really strong people together and also leaders together. So when you've actually got a team of leaders who need to work together, like the leaders of a company, the directors of a company. I mean, knowing truly what your purpose really is. And of course, purpose has changed over the last few weeks for many companies. Some, the purpose is just to literally cope with the cash flow. Others, it's to understand, you know, how they're going to manage all their people and furlough some of them or all of them. For others, it's about dealing with overwhelm at the moment in businesses where there's so much going on, where they're maybe part of the food supply chain and things like that. So it's really different, but actually the purpose can kind of shifted a bit, even though your overall business purpose may be the same, but actually the purpose for these few weeks or months, it, you know, can change. So being really clear on what everyone's doing and why they're turning up. I just saw today actually that I got an email through Sainsbury's, for example, and the CEO has been writing every few days to customers. I don't know if you guys got it as well. And it just mentioned that actually the employees are feeling more engaged and happier to be working there, you know, because of what they're doing. And it just shows that they are all united around the purpose of what they're doing. So the strength of that can then absolutely change how people feel about working at that company. So whatever change you have to make to your purpose, it's really key to have that. And then, of course, make sure people link what they do every day to that purpose. So, and that can help in very much in virtual teams, even in, like you said, sort of geography teams where, you know, it's hard to know how you link together, but clarifying that is really important. And then the third area I mentioned is well-being, which of course we are all looking out for each other right now. There's some amazing things going on. Fitness visiting me like all the time, telling me I need to be doing that so regularly, but you know, so many things, and you know, mindful apps that are offering, you know, for free subscriptions, all this kind of thing that's going on to help us. But of course, virtually, it's really important to look out for each other because you don't get any of those physical signals. You're not necessarily checking in with people as regularly as you would when you're face to face. So you know, really considering how to help people's well-being. And sometimes that's doing some really simple, fun things. You know, creating coffee breaks during the day for people in a virtual team. You know, doing some fun things like showing a video of your working environment or the people who are in your house with you or your pets. You know, asking some kind of wild questions like, if you could invite 3 people living or dead to your house tonight for dinner, who would they be? You know, just sort of adding a bit of spice and fun to everyday things that don't have to take a lot of time, but just, you know, bring out some different conversations and connect people. So there you go. That's my summary of everything that I've read. Just those 3 things.
Yeah, and something that we've experienced quite a bit at the moment is, and I experienced it on the Google training course as well. And that's, if you're working on a particular project, so we've got the purpose in place, we know what the goal that we're all working towards, but on the Google course, I remember people being out of contact for a period of time. Now, if you was in the office and the person was out of office, off sick, whatever, it wouldn't have been a problem. But you don't have contact with someone for a couple of hours where you're supposed to, and all of a sudden it's like the world's ended. And everyone's like, should I take that job on now? Who else can move forward with a piece that they were supposed to be doing? And we even experienced that a little bit from our own side, is, you know, when we work from home, and we do that a lot because we're in a business that allows us to do that previously, before everything that happened. It's, you know, if I have a particular deadline on a particular project, normally if you haven't heard from someone for a couple of hours, it's not a problem. But, you know, all of a sudden now, because you're just not in the same building as them, you don't hear from them, and all of a sudden the panic starts to set in, and you think, oh, is the work getting done? So how do you deal with that?
And are you meaning, Frankie, sort of from as a leader or someone who's managing the team, you know?
Yeah, I guess it is from a leadership point of view. But I mean, I'd like to think everybody in the business that we were involved in felt like they were part of a collective and a team. And yes, obviously it's my role to sort of lead that and drive that in the right direction. But, you know, it's certainly not a point where I'm casing people 24/7. Everyone's an adult. Everyone knows what their responsibility is, and they know what they should be doing, and what they're sort of, and we do make it very clear. We do sort of break everything down into sort of micro projects, and everyone knows what their role is, what the time frame is to deliver that. And we use nice sort of boards that, you know, sets everyone their tasks, and then we do a handover and so on. So in terms of what everyone should and shouldn't be doing, that all seems very clear. And the thing is, it gets to the deadline, and the work gets sent over, and it's there, and you go, well, what was I worried about? Just because you're not in that same room, for some reason, there is that heightened anxiety of, is things getting done?
Yeah, and it's totally understandable, because it's just if it's a different environment to what you've been used to, and you've been used to being able to sort of just almost subconsciously just look over the room you're in and see the team working, or certain people talking to each other, and you're thinking, oh great, you know, they need to collaborate. You know, these little things are going into our head all the time in a face-to-face environment that we might not even consciously be really taking in, but you're sort of keeping an eye on everything. It's true, it's really tough to make that shift. You know, I think the one big word here is trust. And that is actually what totally underpins every piece of work I do with teams, is about how you build that trust, and how you trust people. Because actually being able to, you know, build the trust for a leader means that they have less of that anxiety. And part of building that trust is obviously really understanding how your people work, because some people like to be left alone for 2-3 hours, get their thing done, and trusted to deliver, and sort of almost being a bit hands off, whereas others may really appreciate a little message an hour in, you know, you're doing okay, is this, you know, along the right lines, you know. So people actually work quite differently, and so particularly as a leader, but also as any other team member, it's great if you can kind of understand how those people work, how they learn, how they like to communicate, because then you can actually behave, you know, and help them along the way. But you know, the anxiety is an absolutely fair thing to feel, and I think also, you know, to help with that, you can put in some boundaries around things. So you know, you can sort of as a team decide, well, things may work better if we regularly update where we are. So, you know, maybe before lunch, even if the deadline's not till the end of the day or tomorrow, but before lunch, we're just going to say how far we've got. We're going to write literally a sentence each to say where we are. You know, if the team would work well like that, and that would help also the leader to feel like things are heading in the right direction, and give them, you know, help them to manage that anxiety, then those little things can help along the way. I mean, I would say a word of caution there, of course, around not micromanaging people, because it all comes back again to trust. But there are definitely things that can be done in a team to help everyone along. But the best way to do that is to have that discussion as a team, and see how it will work.
A huge thing in there as well, which has just become really apparent. It's not just about knowing how your team work best, but it's knowing how yourself needs to, feel. And like you said, with the, does someone benefit from you, messaging them on in intervals to make sure, but from my own point of view, sometimes I think I'd benefit from that myself. And I actually don't put that into place because I'm always thinking about them rather than thinking about me. And I think that's also a really big point.
Absolutely. It's got to be a balance. And great leaders will, flex their leadership style depending on the person and the situation. But great leaders are also really authentic about themselves and determining what's important to them. So you're absolutely right, Frankie. There is a balance to be struck here, and sometimes just having that conversation either with the team, be really honest about how you're feeling about it. This is a weird environment for me. Might have worked a bit virtually before, but not full time all the time, and I'm worried that I'm not helping you at the right moments, or that things aren't going to get done, although you seem to get it done, but I don't know if we're doing it in the best ways. How can we all make this better? Those kind of questions, and being honest about how you're feeling is really key. And also, of course, with certain people, you might want to do that one-to-one as well, people who are maybe a bit more sensitive to it, because there'll be team members and people out there who are finding it really tough to be in this environment right now, especially those who are caring for, kids or elderly people. I mean, there's so much going on right now that our kind of normal working hours and working world has been thrown up in the air. So it may be that you'll also recognize you need to have some one-to-one conversations with people to really, but again, you can be really authentic as a leader.
Perhaps I can ask a question there. When we were doing yesterday's mastermind, one of the people there was saying they were having real trouble getting into a work ethic, and they set themselves a diary, and they thought that was really good. So they had certain times to be working, some certain times with the family and the kids and all of this. But they were creative. They were actually finding it really difficult to come in at those times and get creative. And when we went around the group, it turned out everyone was working different hours. Some people working quite late. I'm starting work rather early and finishing early. And so the thoughts that went back to the person who asked the question was, do it when you're actually feeling it, particularly as a creative. When you're feeling creative, get in that room and do as much creative stuff as possible. But whilst you're not feeling creative, perhaps that's the time to be doing things with the kids and husband and all that kind of stuff. What do you think when you're running a team? Is it possible to be that flexible with time for different people in the team?
I mean, the quick answer is yes, Nigel. It absolutely is. And I think virtual environments give us the opportunity to be way more flexible. And some of us are being forced into that position because of having kids, and particularly young kids that are right there next to us. But of course, it does depend on the business too. And I know there's customer service teams who need to be on the end of the phone at home now, picking up calls to customers, and they're super busy. So they need to be sitting there for those hours of the day. So of course, there's some environments where it can't happen. But yeah, I totally advocate that knowing how you yourself and your body rhythms and your family environment, and, some people like you, obviously, you wake up, you're on it, it's your best time, whereas other people find it much better to get other things done during the day, maybe be more physical in the day to then really sort of focus their mind later on. So often being able to have more of a sort of daily routine, and particularly daily deadlines, but allow people the flexibility of when that might happen is really great. I've spoken recently to some teams that are setting some core hours where they will all be available, but everything outside of that, it's totally up to them. So I like that, because then you can rely on people being there at a certain point in time if you want to collaborate, have calls and so on. And then they've, all that team has agreed with their family, between 11 and 12 and 3 and 4, I am going to be focused on work. But I could add all my hours around that, or I could just do those hours and then work the whole evening, so whatever it works, how it works for them. So yeah, there is a bit of flex. And when you were mentioning about a creative person, and not feeling creative at that time, I think there's also another aspect to that about the environment they're in. And often any of us to be creative, you've got to think about the environment. And we don't have many choices of environment, do we, where we can go? We used to, I used to go to co-working spaces. I used to go and sit in cafes overlooking the beach to, write my strategies. So, we can't do those kind of things. So I guess, what is it that helps them be creative, for me, would be really important. Is it about putting on music, hiding in a corner somewhere? I heard of someone working in the bathroom the other day because they got away from the family, and they took their music in there, they set up cushions, and they actually found that was one of the best places to go for a period of time. Hopefully not the whole
bigger bathroom than I have.
Yeah, and me, but I wouldn't get much work done in there. But it's that kind of thing. Actually, are there things that they can do? It might even be putting on candles, or creating smells. These kind of other things that you can do to create an environment. So it might not only be just the time that is the challenge.
You mentioned earlier an intervention. What did you mean?
Okay. So when I talk about interventions with teams, as somebody who is working with a team and facilitating them, when I work a program with teams, I create sort of short and targeted interventions, which means calls, or I might go in and join them for a management meeting for an hour of their management meeting. So it's almost like I intervene to ensure that they are keeping on the track that we'd agreed that they would work on, and also helping if there's any challenges that are coming up. So I normally do that after I've maybe spent a day or a few days with them, working with them, doing some training and really working on how they can work better together as a team. We then agree what are the actions coming out of that. And so therefore at periods I then intervene, I guess you call it interventions, to ensure that they are on track. And I mean, there's various ways to do that. You can do it virtually, by email, by apps, by calls, and also by dropping in at times to, which I quite often do to management meetings. They kind of have 45 minutes to an hour with me. To ensure, and then one of the things I'm really strong about is ensuring sustainability of what I do. So I'm not a trainer that goes in once, does some training, and then says, hey, you're all great, bye. I absolutely am someone who wants to see things through over a period of months, even if it's really short, sharp interventions. So that's what it's about. But you can use that concept, of course, in the virtual world, short, sharp interventions, whilst people are, whilst teams are working, is also really key, because again, just like when I'm running my programs, I'm not there with them every day. I'm not sitting with them. I can't see how they're behaving. So kind of having these little interventions as reminders of what they're meant to be doing, and a little moments of reflection, or have I been doing what I said I'd be doing? Have I had those meetings with my team members I said I was going to have? Have I collaborated in a more positive way than I would have done before? It's that moment of reflecting, and then allows people to sort of almost recontract with themselves and potentially their teammates as to how they're going to go forward. You can use the same concept now in our virtual working world as well.
How are you finding it, Frankie, with your team? Are they all settling into it well?
Well, obviously at the moment, that's all come to a bit of a standstill. So, we got to the position where we had no option but to furlough our staff for survival. So it's we sort of don't need that at the moment. But prior to that, yeah, it was a challenge, and it was, and we were already working virtually for a couple of days a week. So we kind of felt that it would be quite a smooth transition, really. But not having that face-to-face interaction, I think it really did throw up a few issues, and one of which was communication. where it's really easy to ask something when someone's sitting over in front of you, and it's if somebody's got to type that out via an email, they almost just think, oh, I'll just try and muddle my way through it rather than just asking the question. An email doesn't seem like it's that big a task, but it's just, people just seem to think, actually, I'll just see if I can sort of work my way through it. And it obviously then what you end up with is an output that actually wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be. So where normally someone would say, oh, come over here, have a look at this quickly, just check I'm on the right path here. They weren't doing that, muddling their way through it, getting to the end. And then actually I'd have to go back and say, well, that's kind of missed the mark. Actually, you need to revisit that and start again. I wish you would have, sort of halfway through, let me know. So we started to learn that sort of process and make sure that, we had a way that people were passing over work, so we knew exactly where it was, and we weren't getting to the end of a project before I could sort of get my eyes on that. But then also just with motivation, I just found, I could feel it already happening, that people were starting to get a little bit stuck in a rut, if you like. And you could feel that their energy levels weren't what they would normally be. You'd have a call with someone and they wouldn't be talking in the same bright way. It would be very sort of mundane and a bit, yeah, okay. And you were saying, and then, maybe I left it too long, but a couple of weeks down the line, it was, well, actually, no, I am really struggling. I'm not in the best mental state. I am starting to feel a little bit low and a little bit down. And in the mornings when I'm sort of getting up, I'm finding it hard to get motivated and get started. And from a business owner, that was really difficult to hear, because obviously I really care about the work that we do and pride ourselves on the work that we do. To hear from somebody that they were struggling to get motivated to do that work, one, initially you think almost sort of anger and frustration, and you're like, why is that there? Because that we should all be proud of what we're doing, and we normally are. And I took that a little bit personally, if you like, because I pay that person to do a role and to do a job. So to turn around and say, well, I'm not that motivated to do it, was really, really difficult to hear. And then it was just then, how do we now try and turn that around, which it wasn't an easy task at all.
Yeah, but I mean, how wonderful, Frankie, that someone could actually say that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so important, and that actually shows quite a level of trust to be able to say it. It might have taken a while, like you say, and they might have kind of gone down and down over a period of time to get to a point where they felt they wanted to, but the fact they had that conversation, they were brave enough to do it, and also that you have the relationship with them where they could have that conversation with you. I mean, that's really, that's a big accolade for the business that you run, that people can do that. And it is about picking up on that as early as we can to help people not fall really, really low, which is actually a totally natural thing to happen through this crisis situation. And people are going to go through that sort of curve almost. It's almost like a change curve. You've kind of got to go down before you can come back up again, however much you love the company you work with and your teammates, and even if you haven't got major stresses at home. But even so, it doesn't stop everyone, having to go through that sort of feelings of up and down. So, the fact that they even opened up and had that conversation with you, is really great, because then you can actually do something, even if it is hard and it might take time. So well done for that in the first place. And what about now, Frankie, for the position you're in terms of, you've furloughed staff and yourself, of course, and I realise you can't actually work on the business, but in terms of kind of being ready, or preparing yourself for actually when you can start to do something again, are you thinking about that at all yet? Because businesses are starting to say to me, what can we do to actually sort of prepare for the next, what's the next going to look like? So are you thinking that through at all?
It's a great question. I have to be really careful what I say, because the way the government have laid it out for us, obviously they make it very difficult for us to actually prepare, because in effect is that seen as working on the business that I'm furloughed from. So it's very sensitive ground, that, and it's I can go and work for somebody else. I can go and work as a self-employed basis. I can go and work for another business. But they make it very, very clear, other than the sort of directorial duties, you can't undertake any more tasks. So if I wanted to go and work on SEO within that business to try and sort of hit the ground running afterwards, or I wanted to put a nice campaign together, or I wanted to start thinking about strategy, I suppose the strategy element could be under director's duties, but actually implementing any of that right now would be sort of really dodgy ground. So from our perspective, it is a little bit paused at the moment. Do I think about it? Yes, because I think that's really important. But in terms of what we can actually do, until we actually see the criteria on the portal that comes out, kind of best advice I've been given at the moment is to just sit still, which is really difficult and really frustrating.
Yeah, I can well imagine. Yeah, you're right. And you have got to be really careful. I guess the thing is, it's not going to stop your brain from going, is it? And potentially how you stay in touch with your people, even if it's nothing to do with work, but how you have some care for them during this time as well, is going to be important, because sometimes it's not even what we do in preparation, it's actually how we're being. How we're being with people, just reaching out once in a while, or, that kind of, how we're being in ourselves, how we're handling this is actually part of the preparation for when things can get more back to normal, or the new normal that we'll be into. So, yeah, but I can understand it's quite frustrating that you don't know exactly what you can and can't do at the moment.
But I think that's important what you've just said there. And what I definitely do want to start doing now is working on my own personal brand. So it's one thing for your business to have a brand, but there's always a lot of discussion of whether you should put your energy into promoting your business as a business, or whether you promote yourself, your own knowledge, your own personality through online processes as well, and online social platforms. And I think I've been victim a little bit to always focusing from a business perspective rather than one of a personal level. And we had an interview with obviously Barnaby really recently, and he's brilliant at having the strong brand, but also having a brilliant personal brand on a personal level where everybody knows him as a speaker and an expert, but everyone knows the company as well. So something that I definitely want to do while we're going through this time is to put myself out there a little bit more, put my own personal skills and experiences and knowledge out there, and try and get people to understand, me as myself rather than as a director of a company a little bit as well.
Nice, a nice positive thing to do. And I mean, it's an example of sort of pivoting a little bit, isn't it? We all hearing this word a lot at the moment, but, making the use of being able to pivot. So you're pivoting from the business brand to a bit more of your personal brand, so you can bring that personality out.
And there's so many people that do that. So you've got in our world, you've got Gary Vaynerchuk, you've got Neil Patel, you've got some really big personal sort of brands out there, and it's something that we've just totally neglected. And sometimes it takes these sort of step backs for you to realise exactly what you should have been doing.
Yeah, it's good reflection time, isn't it? What about you, Nigel, too? I mean, you're successfully moving a lot of your business online, but are you considering what impact that's going to have and what the kind of new normal might look like for you in the future, when we're kind of out of all, at least moved maybe partially out of this, and we can potentially get together face to face a bit more? What's your thinking?
Nice to be able to sit down over a nice lunch and talk to each other rather than online. But I'm being very conscious of actually carrying on with the same offering. So it's still the same value proposition as pure B2B. It's still about sharing knowledge and helping each other move forward. So although it's a pivot in as much as we're using a different technology, we're doing Masterminds online on Zoom, it's still the same thing. It's still peer mentorship, being able to help each other through this difficult time, but being able to help each other as business owners by advising each other. So I think, to answer your question afterwards, we will keep at least one online mastermind a month going, possibly more, because I think they've worked really well, and it does enable people where we're spread out over quite a distance and some members would never meet each other, it enables them to get in the same room with each other, which people have been liking. Actually, all the masterminds have been full so far. So yeah, we're definitely learning some things. Me using Zoom is definitely a new skill. And being able to order and things like that, which is all great. So I mean, but it's nice using it on a regular basis. So it just becomes natural.
Yeah.
No big challenges. It's been lovely to be able to keep effectively doing the same thing, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah, which is nice, but actually you're going to take something really positive from it as well. I keep talking about some of the silver linings that will come out of this time, and one of those is about it being able to extend your offer and like you say, have some virtual sessions in the future so that you can then extend the network more easily than when people are only getting together face to face, which is really powerful and really important, and things will come from that as well. So I think that's a really lovely example of as we go through this time, and maybe it's a little early right now, a lot of us are still feeling really in crisis mode, but as we begin to breathe a little more and kind of manage through this time we're in right now, to sort of look at what does the future bring and what are some of those positives and sometimes subtle changes that can come out of both our value propositions, but maybe of adding extra things to our business. Could also be how the team is working, adding in, I'm sure we are going to see some companies who do allow more virtual working than they did before. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to come out of it. It will depend on the company, the culture, and how long we're in this situation for. But and then and there's a lot of evidence to say that that the number one thing that improves when people actually are allowed to work virtually when they want to, so maybe not all the time, but when they have that flexibility, is the number one thing that comes out of that is actually productivity. It's not even work-life balance or mental health or all of those things, which also are benefits, but the number one thing proven to come out is better productivity, which I think as business owners we would all want to have. So being able to offer more virtual working and know how to integrate people who work more virtually with teams who are more face-to-face, being able to do that in the future, it can make a team and a business more productive.
Now that's interesting, because I'm hearing the owners of businesses being concerned about how do I keep productivity going with people working. So do you think it's actually going to have a positive effect?
So yes, it can, absolutely. It is obviously down to how well the team makes it work. And I think the thing is, just like the change curve, we often go a bit down before we can go up. And it sort of matches the stages that the team goes through in its development. So when you move, when you mess a team up, whether it's because all the members change or the whole essence of the team changes, or even how the team is working changes, like going virtual, the team has to kind of go through its stages again. And one model I use quite a lot is the Tuckman model. Some people have probably heard of it, of forming, storming, norming, performing, which means that a team has to sort of form first of all, just get to know how on earth they're going to do this virtual working and how they're going to sort of self-motivate. And then they storm a bit. That's when things don't go so well. And we might be getting into that stage with some teams now, and that's probably why some business owners are feeling a bit like that. It feels uncomfortable. Like Frankie said, some people are actually finding it incredibly tough to be stuck at home, all those pressures, that anxiety, and then potentially teams that may have worked quite nicely and easily before are now grating a bit, and there's some subgroups coming up, and that kind of thing can often happen as you go kind of lower in the curve, and that storming phase. But it's important to actually recognize that's a good thing to go through, because as you come out of that, you go into what they call the norming phase, which is you've found your new normal, your new way of working, and people will figure how to make that work as long as you're putting in the things that I mentioned at the beginning, the team rhythm, having a good team purpose, and ensuring the well-being of your people. As long as you're putting in the real basics to help that move along, you will get to this norming phase. But from that, and particularly where people are able to create a better sort of balance and work where they want to, where they are going to be most productive, and create those structures, you actually get higher performance from that. And that can be achieved. Sorry,
I was going to say, sometimes you need more systems and KPIs or less?
Well, I think you need more clarity on them. So sometimes that can mean less but clearer measures, because sometimes businesses can have quite a lot, and actually that's a bit confusing. So it's not always more, but I think it's absolutely clear. And having them and communicating them and revisiting them often. So you maybe use them more, you maybe communicate them more, but ideally you don't have too many that you're trying to measure yourselves against regularly, and then you make sure that you actually are revisiting them really often. It's the same thing as KPIs is with communication. You need different kind of communication when you're in a virtual world as well, more regular but probably shorter, and probably smaller teams working together than big teams, because that's easier to handle virtually. So create more subgroups. So they sort of go along the same lines. It's just the adaptations to make when you're in this virtual environment.
That's really useful, actually. And do you suggest people have WhatsApp groups that they can talk to each other in, or just regular video, or a combination of the two?
Yeah, I think it, of course, depends a lot on the team and the business. But my suggestion, again, is this is all part of the team rhythm, is to kind of agree it amongst yourselves. So we all know it's not always great to have like an open chat going all day long, where people are messaging each other, and potentially messaging even more than they used to when they were more located together. There was still messaging that would potentially go on. I remember someone messaging me who sat next to me in my office previously, and I was like, you're not going to talk to me. But sometimes it's easier to write a message. So it happened before, but of course it's happening even more. And having a sort of open messenger all day long, it's not great for productivity again. So it's about the team deciding how they want to work. But being able to message each other, particularly if you do have some core hours, and being able to be all online at that time, know you can message each other, can be really helpful. And of course, also having calls, and most ideally making them video calls, being able to actually see each other is really important. But again, people's attention can wane quite quickly on calls, and I find this when I'm doing training online. I can do a whole day's training and keep people utterly focused and on it for the whole day, with some breaks, of course. But online, really, I'm looking at 45 minutes, an hour as a good time. Young people I've worked with, probably 20 minutes. Yeah, so and the same thing applies to meetings, where you might have sat in a meeting for an hour or 2 hours, and that's not always the best thing to do online together, so keep them shorter. So again, adapting it, but using different things. I've heard a lot of people using apps that Trello and things like that actually keep a team coordinated, or managing a project together. Those things can be really helpful as well. So it is probably a combination, but I would say agree it as a team, how you want to work it.
I can see your value to companies now. I would imagine most business owners, when they hit the storm bit, will be absolutely panicking. So to be talking to you and say that's going to end up with a new normal, I think would be real confidence building for a lot of leaders, actually.
Absolutely. And that's where I've also been helping some people just through some one-to-one coaching and mentoring, which is not what I do a lot of in my business, but I am a trained coach. So sometimes it's just having a one-to-one conversation and saying it's okay, there's a lot of people going through this, and what are just the small things that you can do, and particularly how you can be in your behaviors that will help you, and therefore then help the team to get to their new normal. I've been helping people, and I've been offering up free sessions to do that too, over these weeks, because we all need as much help as we can get. So I'm really, really happy to have those conversations and completely complementary.
You have the right skill for the moment. Frankie, do you have any more questions?
No, it's everything from me.
Melanie, that was a brilliant interview. Thank you. I think that was really engaging, and there's a lot of information in there for people working remotely with teams. Thank you very much for today.
Pleasure. Great to speak to you guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stop recording now.